what can you do to protect your hard-earned assets and your legacy and keep your family safe in a very unsafe and crazy world? So first off, I think it's important to point out that we wrote a book on this. So Mike wrote Beat Estate Tax Forever a couple of years ago. He and I are about to publish an updated version of that with some new numbers, some new issues. But our existing book, if you have that, the numbers are changing, but the concepts I think are largely still the same. But we do have an update coming, so look out for that. I will be a co-author on this new version. I'm very proud to say. Beat Estate Tax Forever. So we think about this a lot. We have a book about that. The book is an overview, though. You can't read the book and do it all yourself. I think it's really important to reframe estate tax planning as an investment. Because I think you're watching this. Maybe you're not in this category, but a lot of people are like, I don't want to work with lawyers. I don't want to do that. I don't want to pay. They charge too much, they're annoying. That is, in our view, obviously, an idiotic mindset. Spending a little bit, investing with a good team of advisors, it can be one of the best investments you will ever make. And you have to look at it in terms of return on investment. It's so funny, human psychology. We're so wired to want to increase gains, and we don't always value how powerful it is to avoid losses. In some ways, we like to avoid losses, but when it comes to tax planning like this, we have to invest a bit to save. I think a lot of people have it all backwards. So like, oh, I can invest in the stock. Maybe I'll make 50% return. There are no guarantees in investing. Estate tax planning is one of the few areas where we can actually show pretty concrete numbers of how, hey, spending $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, whatever it is, can save you X million for multiple generations. So reframe it that way. A penny saved is a penny earned. Most taxes you pay come after you've already paid income tax on them, by the way. So it's almost like a double. If you can save money, that's the equivalent of earning more. If you can save $50,000 in taxes in many cases, that's actually the equivalent of earning $80,000 or $90,000 because you have to pay income tax on that. So just reframe that. And what are some steps you should take right now? Well, I think you got to make sure your foundation is right, that you have a very good estate plan. We've helped so many families with this. I mean, this is core to our practice. You don't have to be high net worth to work with. We work with middle-class families all over the state, but you need to make sure that your core estate and your living trust, your power of attorney, your advance directive, they're all up to date. You have the right people named. Do you have the right structure if you're married? Do you have an AB trust or a non-AB trust? Do you even know what that term is? That's okay if you don't. But as tax laws change, the structure of your living trust by itself could have a 6 or 7 figure impact on taxes. Do you put protections in for your kids? Do they have family protection trust or dynasty trust? We don't think you should leave anything to your kids. You should instead set up dynasty trusts, or as we call them, family protection trusts, for each of them to protect them from divorce, to provide protection against lawsuits and future estate taxes. And we talked about Prop 19. Have you protected your house? Or are you worried about preserving your house for future generations? We can help with all of that. So who needs to be worried about this? Let's just go through some basic numbers. So if you are single and you have an estate of $6 million or more, you need to at least explore these issues. And as your estate gets bigger, it becomes more of a certainty that you need to worry about this. And if you're a couple and your estate is worth, let's say 12 million or more, you need to be worried about this, because these are the areas where we know it's a virtual certainty you're going to be impacted. And we have this major deadline, December 31st, 2025. Could even be sooner, depending on the election outcome. And the big thing is, talk to us. There's no one size fits all solution. There's no do this and you're good. There are so many different solutions, and every family is different. You might choose, some of our high net worth clients choose not to take big steps because they're like, I don't want to do this now. And many people are proactively planning right now before these deadlines get close, but don't wait. We will get booked up. If these deadlines are coming and we think they are, we will not have capacity to meet with everyone we need to meet with. So set meetings sooner rather than later, start the process. Let's go through a couple examples of estate tax planning steps that we can take. So who here has seen Shawshank Redemption? I don't know if you've seen, this scene is very memorable. It's one of my favorite movies. It's classic, and many people, I think, we relate to Shawshank Redemption as their favorite movie. I love Shawshank Redemption. There's a famous scene where the evil cop is holding Andy Dufresne, the protagonist of the movie. Andy Dufresne says, "Do you trust me?" He's working on a rooftop as prison work. And he goes to this psychotic prison guard and says, "Do you trust your wife?" And he says, "What are you saying? Do you trust your wife?" says Andy Dufresne. And the prison guard grabs him. He says, "What are you saying about my wife?" And he holds him over the edge of the building. He's about to strangle him and throw him off the building. And Andy Dufresne then continues to talk about a tax planning strategy because he's an accountant. And that's how he kind of gets on the guard's good side. Minor spoiler, not really. What does that mean? Why am I bringing up the Shawshank Redemption? Well, Mike, why don't you talk about the Spousal Lifetime Exemption Trust? Because do you trust your wife or your husband? If you do, this is one of many powerful tools we might use. So Mike, why don't you talk about the SLAT?
The SLAT. So let's emphasize, as Mark said, this is not the thing to do. This is one of the key elements in the arsenal, one of the best options available for those with larger estates. It works. Okay, the idea here is one spouse creates an irrevocable trust for the benefit of the other spouse. So let's say the husband does this. Husband takes up to $13.61 million worth of assets and transfers them into this trust. When that step is taken, a gift tax return is filed. The statement is made to the IRS that I gave this money away. I'm using my lifetime exemption and protection, and I'm getting all of that money out of my estate. Obviously, we're doing this before the law changes and before the level of protection goes down to about $7 million. Remember, it's use it or lose it. If you don't do this before the law changes, you can only take this step with about $7 million rather than 13.61. So the money is removed from the husband's estate, and the trust is structured in such a way so that it's not on the wife's estate either. Yes, that can be done. Upon her passing, it travels into dynasty trust planning, so it's not going to be in the estate of the kids either. We're moving assets valued at 13.61. Any future growth in the value of those assets, well, it's not in the husband's estate, and it's not in the wife's estate. So all of that growth that would otherwise be exposed to the 40% estate tax, it's removed from the estate, and it's safe for the next generations. Powerful, powerful planning tool.
2 steps of trust, by the way. The wife would have to transmute enough to make it the husband's separate property first. He can then do whatever he wants with it. And then the husband puts in the trust for the wife. She could leave and go off to Tahiti, and he has no claim over it. It really has to be separated and then given to one spouse and then to the other. So do you trust your wife? I go back to that. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. But, this actually raises a point. There was a lawsuit relatively recently where a very wealthy family took a number of steps that were irrevocable. They were very powerful from a tax planning perspective. And then months later, they said, wait a minute, we didn't know we lost control. Now, it was explained to them, but they had what we call buyer's remorse. They kind of regretted what they did because they gave up control. So these are issues to think through. And that's why so much of the work we do, we feel like we're psychologists as well as attorneys as we do this kind of planning. You have to be really aware of the implications of any steps that you take. But from an asset protection perspective, protecting assets for the family, these are win-win opportunities. And again, the SLAT is one of the most powerful steps you could take, not the only. There are many, many other steps, some of which we'll allude to just a little bit later.
Yeah, let's actually go into one other example just to show concepts. And again, our book goes through this, and there's no one size fits all. But here's another example where you can give away assets, keep control and income, but give up ownership. And this gets very esoteric, and a lot of it's not logical. Some of it is, but we talked about like discounting. So one other strategy we use with many of our clients is, let's say Sally has $14 million in assets. She could face over $2.8 million in estate tax exposure if she doesn't do anything right now. Well, she can create an LLC. This is just one example. Use the LLC to shift assets, but keep control in an income stream as the manager of that LLC. So how can she do this? Well, she could let's say she has 2 kids. She transfers ownership of the LLC to Family Protection Trust for her kids, but she keeps control. So that allows us to discount the value of that gift because there's a difference in the kids' trusts own it, but mom still controls it. There's nuances here. So or maybe it's not mom, maybe it's someone else, but you can get a discount. If there's a difference in ownership and control, the IRS allows you to discount the value of assets transferred. So it can be a discount of up to 20%. So we can discount $14 million to $11.2 million gift. And the growth is out of her estate. Again, the numbers, don't worry about them too much, but she can remove growth from her estate. She can get a discount. There are ways we can do this where a parent can still get some income as a manager of the LLC because they've given up control. But lots of issues here. We have to weigh control. We have to get capital gains taxes, estate taxes, but there are ways we can save truly millions. And this isn't it. There are a lot of other tools. This is not intended to go through these in too much detail, but here's an overview. And
let's just look at a couple of others. In our book, by the way, I think it's chapter 11 that goes through 10, 11 strategies that are available. So let's just pick a couple of them here and just mention them quickly. Charitable giving, charitable remainder trust, a sophisticated way of giving assets away, removing them from your taxable estate, and still having income coming back to you. Life insurance trust. If you own a life insurance policy worth $1 million, that $1 million is part of your taxable estate. If it's structured instead so that an irrevocable life insurance trust owns that life insurance policy, that $1 million is not in your estate. So there's a difference of $400,000 right there for folks with larger estates. There's GRATs, there's personal residence trusts that allow us to do very dramatic discounting. And remember, In this example, we're talking about discounting. Mark did just a moment ago. That is one of the proposals, that one of the opportunities that would be eliminated under the very broad statements from one presidential candidate. But who knows? And again, she's got that laundry list of planning. If anything were to happen, logically, history would tell us that maybe some of those would pass, not all of them. Yeah. So there's going to be opportunities available. So many, no time to go through them all right now, but sophisticated charitable giving, taking advantage of discounting, realizing how all these tax rules interplay, Prop 19, capital gains tax, estate tax, gift tax. You have to coordinate all of those steps, which we can do.
Let's not wait for these deadlines to come up. Contact us at gilfix.com, 650-493-807. Share this if it's your parents, your grandparents who need to see this, because you're the one who's going to get hit by these taxes, because really a lot of these are taxed when someone passes away. I hope you got a lot out of this. And regardless, hope everybody out there is, as my mom likes to say, safe, sane, and healthy. Stay healthy, everybody. And thank you so much for spending some of your time with us.